So we've been talking about celebrating. So we celebrate birthdays with cake and singing and presents, and we celebrate anniversaries with cards and gifts and perhaps dinner out. We celebrate Christmas and Easter with various traditions and meals. Sometimes we even celebrate, the first day of school, the day we retire, the day we adopted a pet. All of these senses of celebration make sense in our brains with the sort of what we celebrate part of our brain. This month, we have had a calendar of random days to quote-unquote celebrate throughout June. So we chuckled last week at National Eat Your Vegetable Day, because not everybody really loves to eat their vegetables. We laughed about National Hydration Day, but I gotta tell you, all week as I took a sip out of my water bottle, I kind of gave thanks for clean drinking water, so it kind of worked. But perhaps you had a donut this month and celebrated Donut Day, or had an onion ring or ketchup or vanilla milkshake day. Turning our attention to these little reasons to celebrate might seem silly, but it does remind us to find joy in the little things. Our gospel reading that Dina just read for us does not scream joyous celebration at first glance. Because in our story, we find two people who are suffering greatly. The first is the woman who has been hemorrhaging for 12 years, and the second is a child of 12 years old who is sick and later dies. Now, perhaps you might notice that the number 12 is there with both. I think this is not a coincidence, but rather the number 12 in our Bible is often associated with fullness of God, a totality or a wholeness or a completion of God's purpose. So as I was sitting with this number 12 and this sense of fullness of God, it got me thinking, what might it mean to think about this fullness of God, not just in terms of a biblical medical miracle story or a biblical resurrection story, but to think about it with ordinary, everyday life? What might it look like to look at the horrors that are before us, whatever our life has going on, and be open to the fullness of God in the midst of it? What might it mean for us to look at the horrors of our world? If you've listened to the news or read the newspaper, you know it's there, and be open to the fullness of God in the midst of it. On Facebook in 2022, on April 5th to be exact, I took note of these words of Anne Lamott's. She wrote this. She's an author, by the way. She said, "I'm going to be 68 in 6 days if I live that long. I'm optimistic, mostly. God, what a world. What a heartbreaking, terrifying freak show. It is completely ruining my birthday plans. I was going to celebrate how age and grace of myopia have given me the perspective that almost everything sorts itself out in the end. But turning 68 means you weren't born yesterday. By 68, you have seen dear friends literally ravaged by cancer, lost children, unspeakable losses. The midterms are coming up, the mind is slipping, my dog died. Really, to use theological terms, it is just too friggin' much." Now, we can all likely agree, it's all too much sometimes. The news is too much, seeing those we love suffer is too much, struggling ourselves is too much. Hemorrhaging for 12 years is too much. Fearing your child is dying is too much. But none of this is the end of the story. Lamott continues, So what does that leave? Glad you asked. The answer is simple. A few very best friends with whom you can share your truth. That's the main thing. By 68, you know that the whole system of our lives works because we are not all nuts on the same day. You can call someone and tell them that you hate everyone and all of life, and they will be glad you called. They felt that way 3 days ago, and you helped them pull out of it by making them laugh or a cup of tea. You took them for a walk or to Target. Now, Jairus reaches out to Jesus. The hemorrhaging woman reaches out to Jesus. And we all can certainly reach out to Jesus in prayer. But I invite you to look to your left or your right or behind you, or to envision the people that you can call. We are not alone. The church is there in the good times and the bad times. It's why we share our joys and concerns together, to remember that we are not alone, to connect. And even when we're worshiping virtually, we can see that we are not alone. There's a fullness of God in this connection. But there's more. Lamotte keeps writing. Also, besides our friends, she says, getting outside and looking up and around changes us. Remember, you can trap bees on the bottom of mason jars with a bit of honey and without a lid because they don't look up. They just walk around bitterly bumping into the glass walls. That is so me. All they have to do is look up and fly away. So we look up. In 68 years, I have never seen a boring sky. I have never felt blasé about the moon or a bird song or paper whites. It is a crazy, drunken clown college outside our windows now. I think that's true today. Almost too much beauty and renewal to take in. The world is warming up. Well, how does appreciating spring help the people of Ukraine? If we believe in chaos theory and the butterfly effect, that the flapping of a monarch's wings near my home can lead to a weather change in Tokyo, then maybe noticing beauty, flapping our wings with amazement, changes things in ways we cannot begin to imagine. It means goodness is quantum. Even to help the small world helps. Even prayer, which seems to do nothing. Everything is connected. Probably best to have both feet on the ground, to oogle the daffodils, to take a sack of canned food over to the food pantry and pick up trash. This helps our insides enormously. Jesus heals the woman bleeding. Jesus demands the child get up and walk and get something to eat. It's not every day we encounter moments like that of God's fullness. But every day we can pray. Every day we can put aside something to take to CCSA. Every day, we can pick up a piece of trash as we walk about our day. And there's fullness of God in that. It's not about just the huge things. It's not just about literally celebrating new life. It's the little things. It's the small acts of kindness that make a difference to one person that day. There's new life for us all in that, and these acts help our insides enormously, as Lamotte puts it. If we only look for the fullness of God in the big, huge things, we miss it in the little bits. If we only celebrate birthdays and anniversaries and major Christian holidays, we miss all those little moments that we can celebrate. Now, sure, we have all lived long enough to know that life is not just one celebration after another. But when we sprinkle these little moments of celebration, moments of doing little small things to make the world better, that has the capacity to brighten our living. That sprinkling has the capacity to help us get through those hard times when they come. Lamott ends her birthday post with these words. So Sunday, I will celebrate the absolutely astonishing miracle that I specifically was born. As Frederick Buechner wrote, the grace of God means something like, here is your life. You might never have been, but you are because the party wouldn't have been complete without you. She goes on and says, I will celebrate that I have shelter and friends and warm socks and feet to put in them, and that God, or Gus, found a way to turn the madness and shame of my addiction into grace. I'll shake my head with wonder at all the beauty that is left and all that still works after so much has been taken away. So celebrate with me. Step outside and let your mouth drop open. Feed the poor with me. My party will not be the same without you. Church, this world would not be the same without each of you. You don't need a medical miracle or a literal resurrection to celebrate, though if you've got those, we'll celebrate. You don't need a medical miracle or a literal resurrection to know that every day is a moment for new life. Because being you is enough to celebrate. Celebrate the life that we have, because the fullness of God is here in our midst. Thanks be to God. Amen.